Hey, my name is Tristan Nunley. I am Director of Solutions Architecture for East here at DBT Labs. And with me is Casey, last name, how you pronounce it again? Mazza. Casey Mazza, who works at Hubspot for the last 5 years. And she is the Analytics Engineering Manager for the RevOps team. Casey, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thanks so much, Tristan. So I'm Casey. I manage a team of analytics engineers at HubSpot. Have been there for 5 years and have been doing analytics engineering to some degree that whole time. I manage our customer success data team, but within our greater data team that I am part of within RevOps, we have customer success data, sales data, data scientists, so we're kind of spanning across the whole kind of stack.
Awesome, thank you for that. So I think the best place to get started is to kind of start from the beginning, like the beginning times before DBT. Do you mind giving us a little bit of information about what things were like at HubSpot before you guys implemented DBT?
Sure thing. So when I started at HubSpot in 2018, we were in the middle of migrating off of a different CRM to use HubSpot as our own CRM. With a CRM migration means a data migration entirely and a reporting migration as well. So that was kind of my introduction to HubSpot. We were building tables on the fly every day, just trying to get our reporting up and running before we migrated. So that was a really challenging way to start, I'll say. But everything we were doing there was just SQL queries being triggered by Airflow, by Apache Airflow. Now that we have kind of moved into a world of DBT and analytics engineering, the transformation that we've seen is much more drastic, right? We're starting to see tables that scale with us versus building a point solution for every single report that we need. We have like this foundation that, you can kind of, it's modularized, right? So you can kind of move things around and make them work together. So that's been a big change. The other big change is just the way that we're able to work together with other teams across HubSpot. So we had pockets of analytics engineers. We didn't even know each other and didn't know each other existed. So having one platform like DBT has brought us all together on that one platform so we can collaborate, and we're finding a lot of leverage in that way too.
So it sounds like a lot of the natural silos that appear in businesses over time, DBT helped you bring those down by unifying a workflow together.
Yeah.
Got it. Awesome. So achieving success in an analytics org is about a lot more than just having the right data stack, right? There's people and processes in addition to the software. Can you walk us through what considerations do you make during a hiring process that set your team up for success?
Sure thing. So we look for somebody on our team. My team is all analytics engineers, like I mentioned. So we're looking for people with SQL skills and some of those hard data skills. But on the soft skill side, we're looking for people with curiosity who see something that's maybe the data looks off or something looks wrong or something, doesn't feel right, and they investigate. They go after it and try to figure out what's wrong and get to the root of a problem versus kind of running past it and creating this backlog of tech debt. So I think curiosity is a big thing we look for. The other thing we look for is someone who is going to have empathy and be able to put themselves in the shoes of their customers. So we think, our customers as a RevOps team are our reps. So for my team, our CSM, our customer success reps are our main customers. So how do we put ourselves in their shoes and think how can we make their lives easier? How can we make, get data in their hands, put data in the systems they're using, just to make every day for them a little bit easier so they can spend more time with our customers and help them grow.
Awesome. So it sounds like you're literally treating the downstream users as customers themselves and building a culture of curiosity around it as well.
Yeah.
Sweet. And how specifically is the analytics team at HubSpot structured?
Sure. So we have what we call is our go-to-market data team. We have a team of analytics engineers that do sales and customer success, and then a part of our RevOps function as well as our marketing analytics engineers, and our data scientists are part of that group as well. So our team is broken out by analytics engineers by function. So there's a customer success analytics engineering team, for example. Same for data scientists. And then from there, a different team within RevOps is our analysts. So our customer success operations team is full of analysts. Our sales operations team is full of analysts. So this is by design. We pulled our data people, our pure data people, our analytics engineers and data scientists, pulled them out so they could find each other. Because what we were finding is that when we were embedded in customer success and in sales, we weren't meeting each other, and we were finding that we weren't, following best practices, or we were doing things quite differently. So we brought these teams together about a year and a half ago now, and we found the way that we have grown and learned has been crazy. The way that you can find other people and figure out, how are you approaching this problem, or is there a function that you're using for this? I think that's something we were missing before, so we brought all those teams together. So our analytics engineering function is kind of on its own, and then our analysts are embedded within RevOps as well, but on a separate team.
Nice. And it sounds like, obviously DBT is not the only thing that's being used at HubSpot. Can you tell us a little bit about the other tooling that's being orchestrated around DBT? Like, what are the analytics engineers using outside of DBT, and what are those downstream analysts using outside of DBT as well?
Yes, for sure. So Snowflake is our data warehouse, and then DBT, of course, integrating with Snowflake. For our BI tool, we're using Looker. So we've been using Looker for about 6 years now. HubSpot, in general, our culture is data democracy and transparency. So having everyone available, the data available to everyone to self-serve is really a critical piece of our culture. So Looker is where all of that is happening. So our analysts spend most of their time in Looker. Our analytics engineers are mostly Snowflake and DBT. And then we also love Monte Carlo for our data observability tool, and really loving the way that they're integrating with DBT and things like that too. So the way that we can find our tests, if our tests are failing, in Monte Carlo or in DBT, we have them all together in one Slack channel, so we can see either the data is off or your data is not unique in a way that it should be. We have all of that coming into one Slack channel together. So Slack is another one I would say that's actually pretty crucial to our tech stack, even though it's not data specific.
Got you. And this is going to be kind of a big question, but I think you can handle it. Can you help us understand what type of business value has been unlocked since you've begun modernizing your stack with and around DBT?
Yeah, for sure. I think the most business value we've seen is kind of like the time to production. So how quickly we can answer business questions. HubSpot is a business that has gone through extreme growth in the past 3 years. And with that comes a lot of new business questions from leadership that they just want to kind of like turn over every stone and find new pieces of data that we hadn't thought about before. And the way that we have built kind of this foundation of data where everything is modeled and ready for analysis with DBT, we can answer questions really quickly. Again, most of our data analysis is done through self-serve, so we're not a reactive data team that's taking, business questions on. But when they do say like, we need to start thinking about usage data, oftentimes we can say we're good, we're ready for that question, and the data is already modeled and ready to go. So having DBT to kind of like modulize our data, and then you can kind of snap it in together with other pieces, that's been really powerful, and just how quickly we can get back to the business and kind of empower them.
It sounds like the business is dancing a little bit better together. Like the teams are understanding what their needs are, how to ask questions, and then instead of stepping on each other's toes, it's more like, let's go ahead and figure this out together.
Yeah.
Sweet. Like how many users of DBT Cloud does HubSpot have today?
Great question. I am not on the admin side of DBT Cloud, so I don't know the answer for 100% certain. I think we have about 100 users on cloud, and probably another 100-ish using core or using cloud less frequently, I would say. So we have a lot of people who, our analysts have access to DBT often, and they can come in and do small field ads or things like that, but our analytics engineers are responsible for architecture. So all in all, I would say about 200 in a team of, RevOps is about 400, so it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and it sounds like the analytics engineers are positioning the downstream analysts for success, and that's how they're actually integrating and working together. Very cool. Let's talk about trust. So I think we all know that having trust in analytics is important. Can you tell us, like, what does that look like at HubSpot? Like, how do you culturally instill trust into the analytics that you're delivering?
Yeah, it's a great question. Trust is hard to gain and quick to lose, right? So it's something we take a lot of time. My mom always said that to me growing up, but it's something we take a lot of time putting into our data and making sure that we're releasing products that people are going to trust. So I think on one side, it's taking the time at the start to understand the requirements and understand the business need, so that by the time you serve them something, they feel understood and they know that that relationship is working. And then once you actually are creating the data, setting up proper tests, and then monitoring that data. I think the third piece that we think a lot about is documentation and kind of definitions, and making sure that we're serving those out to our stakeholders as well. There's nothing that feels a little bit ickier than like going into a data set and things are like improperly named or like not properly capitalized or spelt wrong, and you're like, someone didn't properly take the time to like really thoughtfully build this. So I think that's the other way we're building trust, is like documentation, which sounds so nerdy, but it goes a long way.
I know. I hear you 100%. I love the fact that you're leading with empathy, because that if you understand how people downstream are affected and how that's going to affect how they work, then you can be more considerate as you build your data products. But one thing I hear a lot from customers is that it takes too much time for me to get my data points. Like, you just articulate for us, like, what is the difference between getting an accurate data point now, within minutes or hours, versus waiting 2 weeks from now?
Yeah, we talk a lot about is the data 100% accurate, or is it just directionally correct, and what is enough? I think with businesses that are moving so quickly and the speed at which we're doing business these days, it's important to kind of clarify that up front. So with your stakeholders, do you need it to be 100% accurate? Do you need it to be relatively accurate? Because we can get it to 100% usually, but it's going to take some time. So having those trade-off conversations early, and I think being direct about that. So the thing that we find, to go back to your question about trust, is to say, like, this is mostly right, except we may find some edge cases with XYZ, or these are the limitations of the systems that create weird data, but here are the assumptions that we made along the way. So being able to explain when things are not 100% correct, why they're not, and then, having that conversation with stakeholders of like, is that enough? Or do you want us to keep going and digging in and fixing these like 3 weird edge cases? And oftentimes we find that directionally correct is enough for the work that we're doing.
Right. Sounds like you're finding places to meet in the middle.
Yeah.
Like it sounds like the business has responded well to this more empathetic approach and having that trade-off conversation up front. Very cool. So you've been at HubSpot for more than 5 years. What's your proudest accomplishment with DBT?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say my proudest accomplishment with DBT is, I would say one that we've done so far and one that we're working towards, I guess, as well. Our migration to DBT happened over 5 weeks. So we had 5 weeks to move 163 models for just my team, and it was just myself and one other analytics engineer at the time, and we had to move everything. We had some like downstream dependencies that our data was becoming stale very quickly, so we moved everything over. And I think that that migration is something that we're super proud of, because it wasn't something, this is going to sound a little crazy, but stick with me, it wasn't something that we were eager to do. And we were not fully bought in on the power of DBT at the time, because we felt like we were kind of being pushed on this journey. So through that process of migrating, we started to see the power of DBT and started to kind of open our eyes a little bit to the world of analytics engineering. And along that journey, I think we learned so much. And I think it was the power of like trusting our peers who were saying like, DBT is the next big thing and you have to come on this journey with us. So that balance of like trust and asking questions, but then going along for the ride and finding something that was kind of so magical baked underneath. Probably what we're most proud of so far. And then what I'm hoping, if you ask me again next year, right, what I would say, we are working on getting like all of our models properly documented with testing and validation and stuff. And once we're there, we have a lot of cleanup to do, a lot of tables that are not being used or redundant. So starting a process of like certifying our assets and saying what can you trust? What is the source of truth? And we're doing that across HubSpot, not just with our team, which is something that's brand new for HubSpot. We are such a siloed company, so I'm hoping by this time next year we'll be very proud of that move, but that's what we're working towards now.
Very cool. And when we were introducing each other earlier before this, you talked about how how using DBT and kind of standardizing has begun to help people in the organization level up in terms of skill set and unlock new opportunities for them. Could you just talk about that just a little bit, and so that people understand that it's not just about products, but it's also about people and about increasing the value of the people as well?
Yeah, for sure. So I think there's the product, and then there's the cultural side of things, which it's hard for me to say which is more valuable in the shift that we've seen. We introduced the concept of analytics engineering at HubSpot about 4 years ago, and from there we have a new career path. There's a defined job model with skills that you need to have, at each level. There are salary bands associated with those levels. So we did a lot of work with our HR teams and our salary and compensation teams to get that all spun up. So it wasn't something that happened overnight, I guess I'll say. We put a lot of thought into it, but a lot of what we came up with and landed on came from DBT and kind of the docs and the blogs and the best practices there. The transformation that we have seen for our people has been kind of revolutionary. We had a lot of people who were SQL only, or even pretty light SQL. I put myself in that boat. I could dabble in SQL, but was much more creative on the business side. So now we're seeing people with Jinja skills. They're writing for loops. They're learning Python. All of this stuff is happening through the power of DBT. So because DBT has taken away some of the need to write 500 lines of SQL that you can now write in 10 lines, it's saving us so much time that it's opened up their world. So instead of everyone on our team being eventually working towards a data analyst career path, we're now looking at software engineering or data science, and it's just opened this whole new world of skills. And our team is so much more technical than they were even 2 years ago, and it's all thanks to kind of DBT.
Very cool. And what kind of impact has that had on employee retention, if anything?
Yeah, we're finding. First, I guess I'll share. I don't think I shared this with you before. Actually, we have grown our team this year from 10 analytics engineers to it will be 40 by the end of the year. So we're doing tons of growth in this space. And it's through kind of DBT meetups or DBT's Coalesce conference that we're actually meeting some of these people and bringing them on board. So that has been really cool to see. And I think the other part of that is just, remind me the question, sorry.
I was asking if it had any impact on retention.
Impact on retention, yes.
Hiring and retention, I'm sorry.
Both, no, I jumped the gun. Retention, on the retention side, I have not had an analytics engineer leave my team it's got to be almost 4 years. And same on our platform engineering team, which is a part of our greater data team. We have not seen any turnover there. We are finding that people are coming to HubSpot and kind of loving the ability to own their career path and dive into DBT. They have a lot of autonomy over what they're doing, and since everything's centralized with DBT and the CI/CD process, they have total control over their job and their role and their day to day. So people are very happy, I think, in the analytics engineering role we're building. And if not, I'm sure they'll let me know, right? But we haven't heard any complaints so far.
That's really awesome to hear. One more question before we open it up for a Q&A. If you had to give one piece of advice to other data teams who are at the start of their modernization journey, what would it be?
Yeah, great question. For me, it's take the time to learn up front. Don't rush into things. Be along for the journey, but take some time to go through DBT's documentation. It is so easy to read and learn and understand. I've spent kind of the past couple of months trying to better understand what actually is a staging model and why do people keep talking about staging so much, and the intermediate layer and all of those pieces. And the docs are so accessible for anybody at any level. So take the time early to learn, go with the flow a little bit, but really take the time to understand so that you know deeply the why behind what you're doing. Don't just do it for the sake of doing it, but do it so you understand how you can build it and scale it perpetually moving forward. So lean into the DBT docs, the DBT Slack community I'm such a fan of. There are so many people to learn from there. So that's my advice.
Nice. I like that. I like the idea of getting the foundation right. Just taking your time, crawl, walk, run, right? Yeah, our docs team and our education team are going to love that shout out. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we open it up for Q&A?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, cool. Start Q&A?
Yeah, do we have any questions?
Any questions?
Are there any features? Actually, let's hand the mic over.
I was going to repeat it.
Are there any new features that are coming out in DBT that you are excited to take advantage of or the team is looking forward to?
Yes, thank you. I think we need to learn a little bit more about multi-projects, something I'm very eager to learn more about. Right now, we are on one project at HubSpot across probably like 15 different analytics engineering teams, which has worked for us thus far, but I think we're probably just about at a critical mass where it would be helpful to kind of split that out. So eager to learn more about multi-projects and kind of see where that fits in for us, but I would say that's the biggest one right now.
Yeah, multi-project's going to be huge because it allows you to establish swim lanes in the product that are natural and have been established in the business itself. That way people don't step on each other's toes and stuff like that. Any other questions?
So I'm from Rostors. So we are starting on the DBT journey. Just now it's been maybe slightly over a year. So is there anything that you think we should kind of know? This is where DBT is really strong. These are the gotchas that you should be aware of just before you're starting. Do you have anything like that?
Yeah. Thank you for the question. I think the thing that really stands out to me is that I would want you to know is don't try to make it perfect to start, right? Start with your models that are most complex and break those down into what pieces of those could be an intermediate model and then what pieces of those need to be in your staging layer. So kind of don't start with staging and stage everything and then put everything into an intermediate model. Focus on like what is most valuable outcomes and kind of work your way back. That has been really valuable for us. That is not the way that my brain personally works. I would have had to stage every single thing, right? It would have taken me years. So by kind of moving things over and slowly using like your most important assets first, that's what I would recommend. And then you're also going to find like by the time you get to the end, you'll be like, I don't really care enough to move those, so they're probably not that valuable either. So that kind of helps you to clean things up. So that's my piece of advice. Yes?
It's actually really good advice. Cool. I think that's everything then, huh? Casey, thank you so much for coming out here and speaking to us about how you're using DBT and telling us about your journey at HubSpot.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
No problem.
Awesome.
Sweet. Thank you.